Hey y'all, welcome back. Today I'm so excited to share with you a recap of some of the products I've been wearing over the last 2 weeks, the look I've been creating, and just some of my thoughts and opinions after using some of these newer products for a more consistent period of time. Without further hesitation, let's get right into this video. I want to share with you how my makeup's looking for the day because currently it is 4:28. That means I've had my makeup on for almost 8 hours now, and here is how my makeup looks up close after almost 8 hours of wear. Had an appointment this morning. I had to leave very early to go to the other side of Toronto. Still in my pursuit to make it work, I am using the new formula of the MAC Studio Fix Powder Plus Foundation in shade NC13. Right now, having it on after 8 hours, I can say I am not the biggest fan, especially compared to the previous formula, because unlike the previous formula, I am very aware of how this feels on my skin all day. There could also be some other contributing factors. With gender affirming and hormone replacement therapy, my skin has become a lot more dry. With this foundation, it feels like it's been magnified, especially right under my eyes, toward the outer corners. I can really feel when my face moves, when I emote, when I yawn. I can really feel just like those parts of my face crinkle up. Same with like around my mouth. And if I like move my mouth like side to side, I can feel it pulling around my chin. And for the 10 days I've been testing out the new matte powder foundation, I have gone back to my original Studio Fix powder formula, which is the formula that was out for this one. And I don't have that experience with that formula. I've also played with a few other powder foundations like my Laura Geller Baked Balance and Brighten, the original Bare Minerals, and the one I have here on my table with me, the House Labs Triclone Stintec Foundation. None of those formulas make my skin feel dry like this. Since it is almost 5 o'clock, I need to redo my sunscreen anyway before I go for my evening walk. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna remove my makeup and we are gonna go over some products I've been using recently, and I'm gonna share with you my favorite way to apply the new MAC powder formula. Just in case you are someone who purchased it and you were struggling figuring out how to make it work for you, I'm going to share with you how I found it works best for me and my skin. Let's get into it. Since it is almost 5 o'clock, I am going to use a little bit of my micellar water just to wipe over. And then since I'm not too worried about getting all the makeup off right now, I just want to do a gentle once over with my micellar water, and then I'll go to my washroom and rinse the rest of this off so I can reapply my sun cream. It has been a very busy day, and exciting news, I've mentioned in one of my previous videos, I've been trying to figure out some different things with my health, what's going on, and today I had the follow-up with the rheumatologist, and that was so good. From the ultrasounds, blood work, x-rays I did, everything is okay. One of my androgens is elevated, but from what they checked for like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, and other things like that, everything there came back negative. So that removes a lot of worry. I needed to budget about an hour to get there with morning traffic, and that appointment was early. So I've had my makeup on for quite a while. I was using the Bioderma Sensibio H2O, so I'm gonna give my face a quick rinse off with water, and I will be right back. Since I have already done my skincare routine this morning, and then after my dinner walk, I'm gonna take a full shower. So I'm just gonna apply a little bit of a hydrating serum. This is one I was gifted by Yes Style from the brand MacQueen, New York. This is the Yuja Vita C Clear Serum. This serum is a nice hydrating vitamin C type serum. It uses a blend of different fruit extracts and fruit oils to help bring in some nourishment to the skin. And it also has niacinamide quite high up, which can be great for brightening the skin. It can also help regulate oil production. I like to use it all over. Compared to some other vitamin C serums, this is going to set, as far as texture, in between something like good old green tangerine vitamin C serum that I love. It's a little bit thinner than that, but if you compare it to something like the Timeless CE Ferulic. It's to be more viscous than that. Here in Canada, the price point for the serum is around $11, so it is a great price point. It does have fragrance, which between the fragrance and some of the fruit extracts and fruit oils, it could be sensitizing for some people. So if you are sensitive to either fragrance or plants and fruit extracts or oils, be cautious. But if you're not and you're curious to try a new affordable serum with some nice skin brightening and balancing properties, you might enjoy it. I think going forward, I would probably stick with either the Timeless or the Goodall. When I received this, I had just placed an order for 2 bottles of the Goodall Green Tangerine Vita Serum. I really enjoy that, but Goodall serum runs closer to $30, where this is $11, so this is much more affordable. To combine my evening sun protection and moisturizer, I'm going to do a 2-in-1 step Skin 1004 Madagascar Centella Hyalu-Cica Water Fit Sun Serum SPF 50+, PA4+, and I am getting low on this bottle. Since it's already late in the day, the sun should be going down in about an hour to 2 hours. So by the time we have dinner and go out for the walk, there should only be about 20 minutes of sun exposure left. So I think if I do 1 generous layer, I should be good. This morning when I was getting ready, I did my typical 3 layers of sunscreen. Sometimes I will apply a little bit of makeup throughout the end of the day, and that will be a day when I choose either a longer, more intense route for my evening walk, or I will push the speed and the intensity so that way we can make it a little bit more of a cardio boost section and work up a little bit of a sweat, so that way I can kind of gauge how these makeup products will hold up to more strenuous days. I like to change my variables a little bit so that way we can see how it performs under different conditions. On my neck, I just applied a little bit of the Naked Sundays Cabana Clear. This bin is about 2 to 2.5 weeks worth of product, and this is something I was doing. I saw this little bin at IKEA. I thought it was so cute, and I'm like, this is a great way to corral the products I'm using, so that way they're easier to talk about because they're all grouped together. I have a few sunscreens, the regulars here. I'm currently actively working on finishing the Skin 1004 and the Naked Sundays. These are both almost empty. APLB Retinol Vitamin C Vitamin E sunscreen. This is just over, oh goodness, this bottle is down to here. This one's almost empty too. Wow, so I've almost got 3 empty sunscreens. This is wonderful. I like this on days when I want a little bit more of a nourishing and hydrating sunscreen, when I don't want to wear a separate moisturizer. On days when I am using my Skin 1004 in the morning as my sunscreen, I will apply the Skin 1004 Hyalu-Cica moisturizer underneath. Today, for this makeup look, I am not using a primer because I have found primers, at least the primers in my collection, don't play very well with this new foundation. I find with the new MAC Studio FX Powder Plus foundation, your skin rep is the best primer of the primers I have in my collection. The 2 primers I have in this bin are the e.l.f. Power Grip and the One Size Secure the Blur. I love these, and these pair so beautifully well with House Labs Triclone Skin Tech foundations. I mix these 2. These are more of my going out special occasion foundations just because they offer a lot of coverage. I love how these look on camera. Sometimes in person it can look a little heavy, but if it's more of a low light situation, they're beautiful. And if you underpaint beneath this foundation, it is gorgeous. I've been watching a lot of it. I think her name is Ellen Beauty, and she's really big on underpainting. She is an Australian makeup artist, so a lot of times I will use this on the exterior of my face, blend into my neck, and then I'll take a little bit of this with a dot of the darker and use this to blend out the lighter sections. It is definitely, for me and my style of makeup, not an everyday makeup application, but for something a little bit more special occasion, it's beautiful. e.l.f. Halo Glow. So this is as close as I will get to a makeup primer under the MAC Studio Fix powder. I have shades 1, which is a little bit more of a golden peach shade, and then I have shade 0.5, which is a little bit more of a neutral, slightly golden beige shade. I am going to use a little bit of this on the high points of my face. And since I am going to go outside, I don't want to apply too much, because if I do end up breaking a sweat with more of an intense or more strenuous route, I don't want to look overly greasy. I'm just going to use a little bit of the darker shade more on the perimeter of my face where I have a little bit of redness, and on my nose, just for the fun of it. For my concealers, I have Huda Beauty Pink Pomelo and Peach. I am going to use Peach in my typical color correction areas, which are going to be right through here. And then I like to use a little bit of Pink Pomelo, more so in the inner corner of my eyes. Before I do my color corrector everywhere, I want to share with you another concealer product I'm using. And this is something I purchased on the recommendation of Ellen Beauty. This is the r.e.m Beauty. r.e.m Beauty is Ariana Grande's brand, and this is the Sweetner Concealer in shade Fair 1. This is a pure white concealer. Using this concealer to highlight under my foundation, I find if I highlight right here over where I have my microblading, it does a really beautiful job at covering. And I also take a little bit here through the temples. I am not very precise with this step, and I'll even take a little bit right here in the smile line area to help plump it up a little bit. And then sometimes right here, I feel like with weight loss, I've been seeing a little bit of jowling. I feel like that could just be more so in my head than real life, but hey, this little brightening trick right here has been doing wonders for that. Under my eyes, I have been really leaning towards my Tarte Shape Tape Creamy, and I'll apply a little bit here, and I'll apply a little bit on the lids to act as a primer, and then right around my mouth. And sometimes I'll apply a little bit right through here. If my cheeks have felt especially red, that is when I would go through and use my NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. This is shade L2 Vanilla. It's a little bit more of a beige pink, and I will wipe that right on my cheeks. And the more beige pink shade just helps to neutralize without flattening the shade. From here, I'm going to use my NYX Pro foundation brush number 3, and I just start stippling. With all the different shades I've applied, I don't worry too much about being precise with my blend, just because they're all going to work together, and I'm applying a powder foundation underneath. So even though I have got an illuminator, a color corrector, a brightening concealer, and then a regular skin tone concealer, this is almost acting like my primer or a thin layer of color correction to my complexion. The MAC Studio Fix powder on its own doesn't give me the coverage I want. I have things I like to even out and just make look a little bit more balanced. And on its own, the MAC Studio Fix powder doesn't do that for me anymore. I've also found on an everyday basis, I love being able to use 1 or 2 brushes to cover a lot more space. I love Pinterest. Pinterest is one of my favorite things for everything from craft ideas to outfit, home decor. But recently, I've been loving it for like little salad recipes, because with the change to mine and my husband's diet, we've been shopping a lot more at Costco because it ends up being a lot more affordable for the quantity of fruits and vegetables we've been eating. But that being said, there's always a few, like a cucumber or 2 or a pint of tomatoes that something needs to be done with before it goes off, because we don't want to waste anything. I have been using all these like little extra veggies to make different types of salads, and I think tonight, while I'm waiting on dinner to cook, I'm gonna put together like a little like Mediterranean inspired. I will leave the link to my favorite recipe in the description box from Pinterest. It's definitely not a recipe I came up with. I do modify it if I think that recipe calls for pistachios, but if I don't have pistachios on hand, I will either just leave them out or I will substitute them with something like a different type of nut or even a handful of chia seeds. With this base routine, I find that it does really well when I use a little bit of the Morphe setting mist. let it set for a minute, then I get a little bit of a smoother look when I apply the MAC Studio Fix powder on top. While this dries down, let's look at some of the liquid and cream products I've been using under my powder foundation. When I'm doing a full underpainting technique, that's when I use the Westman Atelier Face Trace Contour Stick. This is the shade Biscuit. I have been working through this forever. This is rolled all the way up. It's almost empty. You know what? It's getting so low. We will add just a little bit just to help it along. Now that it's getting warmer, and a lot of times I will wear my makeup from early morning to the later in the day, I want to make sure my color products last. And unfortunately, some of the new blush formulas I purchased don't last that well. So layering has really helped to extend the longevity. During the Sephora sale, I purchased the new powder blushes from the brand Saie and Tower 28. And on their website, they both recommend their Saie's liquid formula or the Tower 28 cream formula to layer under their respective powder formulas. And I have to say, when you layer either of these formulas under the powders, they make them a little bit better. I love the color I get from the Saie Dew blush and the Tower 28 BeachPlease blush. They just don't last very well. I thought using it under a powder blush would like help it last a little bit longer, but in my experience, it hasn't. They both fade pretty quickly. Wow, I was crooked with my application on the chin. That's a great thing with doing this under a powder foundation, is if you mess up, no one's gonna really notice. My favorite cream blushes to use are the Huda Beauty FauxFilter liquid blushes. I have the shade Ube Cream, which I think was limited edition, and one of the newer shades, which is called Bubblegum. These are beautiful, and these layer incredibly well with the RMS ReDimension powder blushes. There's a few shades I've been using a lot over the last few weeks. The shade, I don't use this one as much as the other just because I find it a little bit harder to blend out because it's a lot more pigmented, is this rich pink called Bermuda Rose. My favorite shade, and this was the very first shade I purchased, and it's still my favorite because it's the easiest to use, is called French Rosé. This is the lighter pink. It's a little bit more on the neutral undertone side of things. And then one I love for more spring summer. This is out of my typical wheelhouse of colors. The shade is called Mai Tai. And let me give you a quick swatch on these. So the first shade is Bermuda Rose. And then we have French Rosé. You can see Bermuda Rose is much more of a blue base, almost like a raspberry pink, where French Rosé is a little bit more of that like bright peony or rosy pink. And then Mai Tai is like a cheerful, tangy citrus orange. My favorite combination is to use Mai Tai and then layer French Rosé on top. And then since we're swatching, I'm gonna also share with you the shades of the Huda Beauty. So the first one is Ube Cream, which this one came out with the Ube birthday collection. This looks like this. It's really beautiful, brightening shade. And then the newer of the two shades is the shade Bubblegum. And this is a little bit more of a really beautiful, cool-toned, milky pink. If you would like to see any of those shades in a future video, just let me know and I can share. But today I want to share with you the other blushes just because they're new, they're popular, they're trending, and I want to share my opinions with you because I think it could help save some money. Left side of my face, I'm going to start with the Saie Dew Blush in the shade Baby. I normally do like 3.5 dots, and then I'll start from the back using my foundation brush and then pat over. So that is how the Saie blush looks. Now, just to help keep things more fair but still keeping things realistic to how I do them, I'm just wiping off my foundation brush on my little microfiber towel. Tower 28 Beach Please in Dream House. Start by tapping some off on the back of my hand and then use my finger to tap some on the cheek, and then go back to my foundation brush and blend out. Now it's interesting because when you first start to apply the Tower 28, it almost feels like it's going to be a little bit more saturated and impactful than the Saie, but I find the Tower 28 almost melts into the skin because I feel like now they're both faint. Like they would both benefit from a second layer. Just for the sake of layering, I'm going to apply apply a second layer of both. We'll start with the Tower 28. I want to build this up because once I apply the powder foundation on top, it is going to fade down quite a bit. So we want to go slightly cloudy with the cream application because that overly saturated color will help show through the powder foundation a little bit better. Between these two formulas, I prefer the Saie over the Tower 28. I personally like that it has a little built-in applicator, and I just find the Saie lasts on my skin a little bit better. Over the years, I've owned 3 shades of the Tower 28, but I've only owned 1 shade of the Saie. There is a new shade that just came out called Flirty. I think it was originally in the Holiday 2024 kit, and it was just released with 2 other shades as 3 new spring shades, and it's really beautiful. I just don't need another blush right now. Now we can go into the powder foundation. Powder foundation is MAC Studio Fix Powder Plus Foundation. This is the new spring 2025 formulation. I have shade NC13. In the previous formula, I wore shade NC15, and NC13 is what I was matched to in the new formula by a MAC artist. So to apply, I still use the MAC 150S brush, and my favorite way to apply is by picking up some of the brush, tapping it on my hand, and then start by tapping and pressing over the face. I find with this formula, it's best if you keep your face as relaxed as possible, because if you crease your face at all, this formula is not going to be the most forgiving. It will show where you powdered over it, and that wasn't something that I experienced with the previous formula. Same thing on the other side. Now, when I first applied the shade NC13, it can look a little jarring because it is slightly deeper than my skin tone, and it's more of a golden olive. I can't say it's my favorite shade I've ever had in foundation. I don't feel like it's my best shade match. I feel like if I were to purchase this powder foundation again and buy it in a different shade, I would try out a few because I feel like there's bound to be a better shade match for me, because I think Studio Fix powder now has 64 shades, and this can't be my best shade match in the range. So I feel like if I went in and tried out a few different shades, I might be able to find something better. But until that day comes, if it ever does come, this shade is more than workable for right now, because we can balance it out to where you don't notice any big color discrepancy. It's starting already. So off the bat, I can already feel it start to tickle my nose. So like I get to feel like right around my nostrils, it itches a little bit. That does dissipate. And when the foundation first goes on, like right now, I feel like applying it over top of a concealer and cream base makes it look a lot smoother. If you try to put down a primer and then do this underpainting, it just ends up looking heavy. And I find if I just try to buff it on, apply it with a sponge, or change up my application method at all with this foundation, it just doesn't look very nice. And when it comes to buffing, you can't be, or at least I found I can't be aggressive. This is not a slap and dash, I'm in a hurry foundation. The way this needs to be blended into the skin is very similar to something like the Bare Minerals either original formula or the Bare Minerals matte formula, the loose mineral makeup. You need to take your time, buff it into the skin gently, and it almost like will start to melt into the skin. And compared to the previous matte formula, this does have a little bit more of a slight glow to it. It's by no means a luminous or dewy finish, but it's going to give you more of a skin-like, slightly plumped up satin finish, which you can further enhance with like a under base, like glow base, like the e.l.f. Halo Glow. But compared to the MAC Studio Fix original powder, that was a little bit more of a natural matte finish, so it was a lot more smoothing and perfecting on the overall skin tone. This is nice, but again, it starts to itch around my nostrils, and even now as it's kind of settling and meshing with the skin, I can feel around my mouth and the corner of my eyes, I can feel it starting to dry down, and that's not something I experience with any other makeup product. products. So for the past few weeks, the highlighters I've been using the most are the r.e.m ReDimension Hydra Luminizer in Prosecco Fizz. This is one I've shared with you a few times. It looks warm and golden, but it ends up giving your skin more of just a really beautiful glow to the skin. It's gorgeous. One I have not shared with you is one of the newer Clé de Peau highlighters. Now these aren't brand new. I think with a year or two ago, Clé discontinued the previous range they had of the luminizer enhancers, and they came out with these. These are now refillable and they have new shades. So I love the previous formula so much, and I was able to save quite a bit of money on this one, so that is why I decided to purchase one. This is the Clé de Peau, the Luminizing Face Enhancer in the shade number 21 Daybreak Shimmer. For this formula, I really enjoy using my e.l.f. tapered highlighting brush and whisking right on top. Compared to the previous formula of the Clé de Peau, I find this one has a lot more of a base pigment. As I blend this into the skin, you can see that soft pearlescent white. Now that could be because it is the center pan does have more of that white pastel base. This reminded me of the previous formula shades I have. Had this for years and I still use it all the time. This was the previous formula in shade number 14, which was Delicate Pink, so that still had that white shade in it. And then also from Holiday, I think this was Holiday 2021 or 2022, there was the Clé de Peau in Wonderful Radiance, which was one of my favorites. And to me, this looked almost identical to the new one. Comparing the Wonderful Radiance to the new Daybreak Shimmer, Daybreak Shimmer is a lot smoother on the skin than Wonderful Radiance. Wonderful Radiance, the white is almost more of a satin matte, and when you're blending onto the skin, it can sometimes feel a little chalky, so that is something to be cognizant of. But with the newer formula Daybreak Shimmer, it can look a little frosty when you first apply it, but give it a moment and it blends into the skin quite nicely. The Clé de Peau, these in Canada, I believe if you pay retail price, these are around 121 Canadian dollars. Very expensive, and I love it. I think it's really beautiful, but if you want something that gives a similar effect, the thing I feel like would get you closest is going to be the Laura Mercier Beige Radiance Matte Highlighter or the Essence Pure Nude Highlighter. Only downside is those only come in one shade, and they're both more of like golden beige. If it works for your skin, that's great. For me and my skin tone, I find both of those run a little too golden, and I can sometimes end up with a golden stripe on the side of my face. I've already shared with you my love for the r.e.m ReDimension powder blushes, so let's move on to the two I purchased during the Sephora sale that layer with these liquid blushes. So we have the new Saie Super Suede Radiant Powder Blush in the shade Bella. So we are going to start by applying that here over the Saie Dew Blush in the shade Baby. Bella is an interesting shade because it doesn't really swatch well. When you try to swatch it, it doesn't really look like anything. It just kind of disappears into the skin. But when you apply it to the skin and you start to build it up a little bit more slowly, but it's really beautiful. When I first received this product and I first started using it, it almost like had a pigment overspray. So it was quite pigmented and impactful the first few times I used it. But now that I've broke through and I feel like I'm more into the dome of this baked formula, I feel like I'm getting a little bit more of this really beautiful, almost like a pearlescent pink glow to the cheeks, and it's just really beautiful. Then we have the also new Tower 28 Get Set, and this is, I believe, a blush plus setting powder, and the shade I have is Malibu Cooler. I mentioned when I first used it in my first Sephora haul video, the pan on this is almost popping out, which you just have to be mindful of. It's not something that I really have an issue with in my experience, so I need to make sure I tap this one off and start with a little and build up, because the Tower 28 blush formula, it is nice, it is smoothing, but it's also prone to sticking and it can get a little patchy. Comparing the two shades, the Tower 28 feels slightly deeper, it feels a little bit more saturated, and it doesn't have that same healthy luminosity that the Saie Beauty does. It's definitely more of a traditional matte where the Saie gives a really beautiful glow to the skin. They're both nice, they're both workable. Between the two formulas, I much prefer the Saie over the Tower 28. I have to be careful that the Tower 28 doesn't go patchy. Now that I've kind of gotten more into the body of the Saie blush, while I think it's really nice, I feel like if you want to spend a little bit more and get something similar, you would almost get the same effect with the classic Dior Backstage Rosy blush in the shade 001 Pink. However, if you want something that's similar to these but better, and you like the color, but you just want a little bit more, that is where the other blusher I've been using comes into play. And this is the Kosas Blush is Life. And the shade I have is Butterflies. This is gonna give you a similar, you know what, I'm gonna add just a little bit. It's gonna give you a similar glow, but it is slightly more smoothing. It almost gives you the perfect marriage of the soft glow from the Kosas with that more smoothing formula of the Tower 28. You are really set on the idea of a smoothing blush like the Tower 28, but you want something that smooths and blurs even better. I adore the Too Faced Cloud Crush Blurring Blushes. The shade I've been wearing for the last 2 weeks is the shade Golden Hour, which is more of a coral pink. So this is not going to really go with the look I'm wearing today. Candy Clouds, and Candy Clouds is much more in line with the shades that I'm wearing. And this one, it does have a little bit more of that cool blue pink. So just to demonstrate and apply a little bit, you do have to be careful with these Too Faced blushes, because while they do blur and they look so gorgeous on the skin, they pack a punch with pigment. So if you are not careful, it can get carried away very easily. Moving on to eyes. Over the last few weeks, I've really only been using 2 eyeshadow palettes, and they're quite different price points. So for my date night special occasions, sticking with my favorite Huda Beauty Rose Quartz palette. This is just a favorite, and I always get compliments from the people I see. I'm sad though that this shade here in the middle, Love Stone, I am almost out of this, and I'm guilty of, even if I'm not using this palette and I have it on my table, I will take the shade Heartstone, which some people aren't a fan of. It's like a pigment suspended in jelly, and it sounds really odd, and it is a little odd, but I like to take a little bit on my finger, run it over my eyelids to act like a tacky base. So this is what I use when I want to be a little bit more dressed up. The other palette I've been using is from Wet n Wild. This is the Wet n Wild Color Icon 5-pan palette, and this is in the color variation Petalette, and it looks like this. So with this, for like an everyday look, I keep it very, very simple. I've been relying on my Makeup by Mario EF2 brush, and I take the soft golden shade, and I start by just tapping this all over my eyelid. Whether I used this Huda Beauty shade as a base, or the other bases I've been loving are the Charlotte Tilbury Eyes to Mesmerize Pillow Talk Cream Shadow. You can see I've really been enjoying this. Or if I want more of a soft matte, I have been using Matte Painterly Paint Pot. Now that it's getting warmer outside, I do love more of a shimmery eye for every day. I just feel like as the weather warms up, things feel a lot less serious, and a little bit of light reflect on the eyes is so much fun. And then I'll even take a light amount, whisk it right through my socket line, and then I like to go down to the pink shade. It's almost like a pink frosting. It's almost like funfetti icing. Like if that was in my mind, if you mixed everything all together, all the little sprinkles and everything blended with the icing, it would turn to this like soft fluffy pink. And I just kind of wipe this right over the top of the lid, and then sometimes I'll do this, not always, but I'll take the point of my brush, go into the matte taupe, and just stamp. This is very much like I spent way too much time doing my base makeup, and I want an eye look that is going to make me feel put together, but I need it done quickly. If you're not talking, this takes a minute and a half tops. And then I just kind of keep going back and forth with this matte shade until I have the desired level of smokiness. Then I go back to the side of that same brush and go into the more shiny rose shade and wipe that right over the lid. And this is almost like my slightly deeper blending everything together shade. Then I like to go back to my blush brush just to stamp over, blend it all together. Then if you want to, you can take the upper edge where you were using that matte and blend things out. And sometimes just for good measure, I'll take my foundation brush and just dab right over. Most days I just use my Too Faced Better Than Sex liquid eyeliner in the shade Chocolate, and I like to give myself just a faint little line of definition, almost to lift and exaggerate the shape of my upper eye, but not creating a full-on wing. I just want to make it look like my outer eye is sitting a little bit higher. For bronzer, I've either been using my RMS ReDimension bronzer in Beach Walk Betty or Laura Geller. I need to get a compact for my RMS because this little plastic protective cover can be a little fiddly to get off, but I like to take a little bit of my bronzer and just run over the outer half of my eye and then dust right over the high point of the cheeks and forehead, a little bit on the nose and chin. I have to be careful. I can't use too much bronzer because this foundation, since it isn't the exact shade for my skin, it can pull a little too dark and it can go a little green. So I need to be mindful with my bronzer application. And then once I have that on, I always like to go through with my powder foundation brush and smooth over. I am coming to the end of this L'Oreal telescopic lift. I like what the formula does, but I'm not a fan of the brush. So I am just going to apply a quick coat over. I still have some of the Judy Doll mascara on. The Judy Doll mascara is what I had on earlier today, and it's okay. I like it as a base. I don't like it as my only mascara because I feel like while it does darken and lengthen my lashes slightly, it still makes me feel like I don't have eyelashes. So I like to have a little bit more lash than that. For my lip color, I have used so many different lip colors over the past 2-3 weeks, and I have a few here with me, but I know I've worn more than these. I have the lip shade I made from Lip Lab, which I wear quite a bit. Here in front of me, I have a Peri Para Ink Mood Glowy Tint in 06, rom&nd Juicy Lasting Tint in shade 32 Bearberry Smoothie, and then a rom&nd Lasting Color Gloss in the shade Peony Ballet. And then in my bag, I have the Lip Lab lipstick. I also have my new Charlotte Tilbury Kissing lipstick in Candy Chic, as well as Super Size Me lip pencil. And then in my bin, I also have the Tower 28 lip pencil in Fill Me In. So I'm going to use this. I remember wearing this one the other day because I was craving a matte lip. This is the rom&nd Blur Fudge Tint in the shade 05 BB Candy. And then I love layering the rom&nd Peony Ballet gloss on top. This wig has been so much fun. I only wear this one when I'm going to be exercising and don't want to wear a hat. This wig, it does not have a lace front, so it's more of a hard front. It does have an artificial scalp. The fun thing with this is it is a heat-friendly synthetic fiber, so you can heat style it. It can get a little too tangly for heat styling on a regular basis, but if you want something that feels polished, holds a curl if you want to curl it, it came with like this curtain bang, so I will just use my Shark Flex Style. Here, I've got the little brush for my Shark Flex Style, so when I have it on, I normally just like to roll it and then pull it out and twist down. That way I get this really cute like little swoop. It was either $25 or $30 on Amazon, but it was quite affordable, especially compared to like something like the Belle Tress wigs I normally wear. So this is on days when I don't want to wear a hat, and it has these cute layers, but they get a little annoying. So my favorite thing to do is twist it into a low pony, and then I have this like little kitsch satin wrap claw clip, and there we go. I've got my water, and I am good to go for an evening walk after dinner. Before I go out, I would change this. Like currently I'm wearing like this like little tank top I wore as like my undershirt earlier, coupled with like a lounge set, and you know, change my lounge set for like a nice like exercise like workout outset, this is how I look most of the days around the house. Like, this wig is definitely not the most high quality. Like, if you look close, you can see the hard, like, I don't know if you can hear it or not. It's like a hard plastic scalp. But like with the bang and the way it like lays down, hold on, that little something I did with the bang earlier that made that one. But yeah, so that is that. This has just kind of been the makeup I've been playing with every day for the last two and a half weeks, and I hope you enjoyed this style of video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Let me know if you've tried any of these products, and if you've tried any of these products and you've had better luck with them than I have, please share with me your tips. When I was trying to figure out what to record this week, I was like, this would be a great idea. So if you have any products that you would suggest trying in a different way, let me know. And until we see each other again, I hope you're taking care of yourself wherever it is you're on the world. Bye, y'all.